Alright, so we're doing H-6. Today we have H-6, tomorrow H-7. Review Wednesday, one-pager Thursday, test Friday. Today we are going to do quadratic formula part 1. Now what's really nice about the quadratic formula is that it always works. Okay, it's going to work for all types. We don't have to worry about whether or not we can factor it. We need to worry about a table. But the problem with the formula is that if you don't do it exactly correct, there's not really a good way to check to see if you're wrong. You just are going to be wrong, and you're not going to know whether or not you're right or wrong. Okay, so you have to be really careful with the formula. Okay, super important. Alright, we're actually going to, because you have to be really careful with your formula, we're actually going to glue in the formula so that way we know that everyone has the correct formula and you didn't screw it up when you wrote it down or anything. So I'm going to be passing out these little formula sheets, and you can go ahead and glue it in right at the top in the middle. You shouldn't need to cut it. Just go ahead and glue that in. Alright, so get that glued in. This is really important to know how to do this. H-6. Okay, so start by gluing that in. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Again, we want to make sure that everyone has the formula correct, so that's why we're gluing it in rather than writing it down. So if you don't have the right formula, you won't get any of the right answers. You shouldn't need to cut it. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I cut it.
If you really need to, just please make sure that you clean up your scraps. This class is kind of messy some days. And by some days, I mean most days. You guys are pretty messy. There's a lot of cleanup I have to do after this class because we like to throw markers at people and we like to not pick up the markers we throw at people. Alright, today as we work, I'm going to be using 3 colored pencils. I'm going to use red, blue, and green if you'd like to use this. And then I'm going to be using a yellow highlighter. If you'd like to also use a yellow highlighter, you can. So I'm going to use red, blue, and green. I'm going to do light blue and light green in case you're curious. Here's my light green, my light blue. So I'm going to do red, blue, and green, and then I'm going to use a yellow highlighter as we go. If you'd like to just use a yellow colored pencil, you can do that too.
So beautiful.
I like the idea of mixing highlighters and colored pencils on the same page. It makes me happy.
Oh, we don't have any color pencils.
Like,
We have like
Ruby's got it. So many.
That's 2.
Alright, so first thing that we do when we look at this, we need to look at our A, our B, and our C. That's really important.
Yeah, why do we have 4 green? We have only the same colors now.
Maybe. So we're going to do A, and I'm going to do in blue. B, I'm always going to do in red. And C, I'm always going to do in green. Okay, if you don't want to use those colors, you can use 3 other colors. So quick. And then maybe leave the door cracked so you don't have to knock. Okay, so as we go, those are going to be really important, that A, B, and C. Alright, our formula starts off by saying x equals, because we're using this to solve. And remember, when we solve an equation, we want our answer to look like x equals. Mubarak, phone away. Tyler, put away your computer. Thank you. Alright, so x equals, and then we have this b. But in front of that B, we have a sign. What does that sign mean? It's a negative, but remember when we did our graphing, what did we call that actually? Somebody whispered it. Opposite of B. So we're going to keep saying that as opposite of B, because if it's a positive, what's the opposite of a positive? A negative. But if it was a negative, what's the opposite of a negative? A positive. And that's going to really kind of goof us up if we think of it as a negative, because negative, negative, what the heck? So much happening. And then we have this new symbol in the middle. What does that symbol look like to you? Kind of an equal. It's not actually an equal because it's touching. When I write this, I separate it out a little bit more, but the computer combines it. It's a plus sign on top. So a plus. And then on the bottom of it is a minus. Had you seen it before, Brianna? Plus or minus. Okay, and then we have the square root of b squared. So our b. Okay. Minus 4 times our a times our c all over 2 times our a. So what's important about a formula is that we are going to be plugging numbers in, and the numbers we plug in are going to be our a, our b, and our c. But there are certain things that stay there always. Like this 2 is always going to be there. It's always 2 times your a. This 4 is always a 4. This will always be a minus there. Okay? Again, nice thing about a formula is that we should get the right answer. About a formula is there's not really a good way to check to see if what we're doing is right. Remember when we graphed, we were able to check our table, see if it was that symmetry. When we factored, we were able to see on that area model if it worked. Mubarak's third time I'm asking you to put away your phone, dude. Keep it away or it's going to be taken away. Third time I'm telling you. Put it away. I don't want to see it. Right now, put it in your backpack. Nope, not your pocket. Your backpack. Nope, in your backpack. You can do it. There you go. Good job. All right, one thing that's really important here is the square root. This square root, all the stuff underneath it, this is why I'm using a highlighter, is because I want to see kind of the colors, but I also wanted to highlight it. This square root is called the discriminant. Oh, 2 M's. That is called our discriminant. Okay, and the discriminant helps us with certain things. We're going to talk about it a little bit in our second problem. The discriminant can really help us decide if there's one answer, 2 answers, or no answers. Do you remember how we talked about that with a parabola? The parabola, if it has 2 answers and went through it twice, 1 answer means it touched it only 1 time. No answers means it was like below it or above it and it doesn't touch it at all. Okay, and that discriminant is going to help us decide if it's 2, 1, or none. All right, here we go. We have 2 examples today that we're going to do together. The first example will kind of take our time as we go through. The second example will go a little bit faster. So for our first example, we're going to solve the equation that we couldn't solve before. So this equation we started with at the beginning of the day was 9x squared plus 4x minus 20 equals 0. And we couldn't factor this one, and we decided not to graph it because we'd have to deal with decimal points, and graphing decimals would be challenging. All right, our first step is to identify our A, B, and C, because that's what we'll be plugging in. So what is our A? 9. All right, what is our B? 4. And our C is negative 20. You got it, Aubrey. All right, to help us remember the quadratic formula, there's this really, really nice song that gets stuck in our head. You guys ready for it? It's just really special that you could hear me sing. x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You want me to sing it? I would love to. Do you want me to sing it really slow, really fast, or not? B plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Do you want to hear me singing it in my opera voice?
Yeah.
You guys ready? X equals plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
I love that. That was amazing.
Pretty good. I got offered a contract with like,
Why are you teaching?
yeah, right?
Why are
Just
you
insane.
teaching?
You guys want to hear how fast I can sing it?
Yeah.
Okay, ready? X equals opposite of b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. No, I'm all out, man. Just the worst day ever, I know. Anyways, that can help you remember it. So we're going to say x equals, and we're going to do a long fraction line. I like to do mine in 2 different lines on my notebook. That way it doesn't get all messed up. And we're going to start with opposite of b. X equals opposite of b. So what's my b? 4. And what's the opposite of 4? Negative 4. Now when I do my plus or minus, this is what mine looks like. It's a little different than what the picture looks like. I do a plus and then a minus with a little space in between, so I know it's a plus or minus. The square root of b squared, so it's my b, 4. And this is really important to use parentheses, because especially when we're dealing with negatives, it can get everything screwed up. Minus, now it's always a 4, so 4 times, what's my a? 9 times my c, negative 20. I'm going to pause there for a second, and I'm going to color code. So I have my b, opposite of b, plus or minus b squared, minus 4. That 4 isn't the b, though. That's just a 4. Times a times c. Now, when we do this, couple of things. We want to make sure that that square root goes all the way over that negative 20. And we want to make sure that fraction line goes all the way across. Okay? And then it's all over 2a. So on the bottom we'll have 2 times, what's our a? 9. So on the bottom we'll do 2 times. Alright, because there's not a lot of ways for us to be checking this as we go, we're going to break this down a little bit as we go to make sure that we're typing in the right things into our calculator. Make sure. Sorry, I was just plugging my computer. So on the bottom we have 2 times our a is 9. You guys, Tracy missed my song.
Sing it again. Sing it in the opera voice again.
Should I try like a bass alto or bass?
Like rap it. Yes.
Rap it? I don't think I can. Billy asked me to do a country, and I don't think I can do it that way
No,
either.
it's actually going to help you a lot.
I could a cartoony voice. X equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
That's a really nice song.
Thank you. I thought it was really great. I sang it in an opera song voice earlier. Alright, yeah, I will. Alright, so next up what we're going to do is we are going to do the square root. So we're going to do this square root part in our calculator, the discriminant. Okay, we're not going to type in everything. And in our calculator, we're going to do just the part under the square root. Okay, because sometimes when we do that square root, we get a decimal point, and we want to make sure we're keeping it as accurate as possible for our answer. Using decimals is going to be really nice at this point. So I'm going to do parenthesis 4 squared minus 4 times 9 times negative 20. And we had 736. Okay, so if I did the square root of that, I'm going to get a decimal point, and I don't want to round yet. I want to wait to round until the end. Now, when I do this, though, I'm going to think about that plus or minus. What that's telling me to do is that there's actually 2 problems here. And rather than rewriting the problems out the whole way, we're going to break it up now. I'm going to do a plus and a minus.
Okay.
Cool. So I have negative 4 plus the square root, and under that square root, we got 736. So square root of 736 all over 2 times our a, which was 9. Now I'm going to write down almost the exact same thing over here. What is the only difference going to be? It's a minus. So negative 4 minus the square root of 736 all over 2 times 9. Again, we're just breaking this down so that we're taking our time. In Schoology, it'll be a drag and drop, so you'll be able to see if you're right or wrong. Otherwise, you won't really know. Once you guys go to Algebra 2 in a couple of years, your teacher will just tell you, just put this all in at once, and you'll get your answer, okay? But as we're still getting used to it, we need to make sure we're taking our time, making sure we're typing it in correctly. So next up, we're going to put this into our calculator. So in our calculator, we want to make sure we do a fraction first. So we can either do this a over b, or we can do this dividing. Using Desmos is going to be really important because it'll do it in the right order for us. If you use your phone calculator, it's not quite smart enough. Google calculator, not quite smart enough. So if you need help finding Desmos, let me know. Okay, on the bottom we have 2 times 9. So we get this really long decimal, and we're going to round it to the nearest hundredth, so 2 decimal places. So I have 1.284. Does that mean I'm going to keep it at 1.28 or round up to 1.29? What tells me to stay at 28? Good. When it's lower than 5, we stay. So x equals 1.28. That's our first answer. What's really nice about Desmos, do I have to retype this all in again for the second one? No. What can I just change? Change the plus to a minus. And then I don't have to type it all in. And I get x equals negative 1 point. Do I want to keep it at 72 or round up to 73? 73. What part told me that time? The 9. Good. 9 is closer to the next number, so we round up to 73. So this one has 2 real solutions, which at the beginning of class we weren't able to factor this one, and we weren't able to graph it. Okay, that's fine. Okay, do a little squiggly wiggly. And that's a problem there. We have one more that we're going to do together, and then you'll get the rest of the time to do your quick check. This one will be a little bit different. We'll talk about as we go why it's different, but there'll be a couple of reasons as we go. So number 2, we're going to solve the equation negative c squared plus 6c minus 9 equals 0. Okay. All right, first step, we're going to identify our A, B, and our C. Why might it be confusing in this one to identify our A, B, and C? Yeah, because for this first one, for A, do you see a number there?
Yes.
We see a negative sign, but what number really secretly goes there?
It's a 1.
A negative 1. But why else might it be confusing to talk about A, B, and C on this specific problem? There's already C's instead of X's. When I look at this C, am I asking about these C's? No, what C's am I asking about? The constant. Yep, the negative 9. What? And what is our B? 6. If you want to color code, you can. I'm just going to color code here to start, and then I won't color code for the actual problem. But if you would like to, if that makes your heart happy, go for it. Okay. All right, so now that we know our A, B, and C, we are ready for our formula. So this time, instead of saying x equals, what are we going to say? C, but we know C is negative 9. Nope, we're looking for that C, that variable in the equation. So we'll say C equals opposite of B. So what is my B? 6, and the opposite of a positive is a negative 6, plus or minus the square root of our B squared. Now this time, am I going to use the opposite of B or just the B? Just the B, so just the 6. Squared minus 4 times our A which is -1 times our c, bless you, -9, all over 2 times -1. You put nurse on there.
Because the bathroom wasn't working.
Yeah, because it's full.
I have to blow my nose though.
Okay, just give me a second. Okay, so we're going to start by figuring out that discriminant. We're going to figure out the discriminant first. And how do we figure out a discriminant?
How much different is this one from the first one?
We're going to find out.
Okay, so we're gonna do different questions.
Not very.
Jay, so you're gonna do two different questions. You're gonna do plus and minus.
Yep, so at this point we're going to do a plus and a minus, and we're going to figure out what's in that square root.
Okay. I always do. I didn't say you don't. I just said.
Alright, so in my calculator here, I'm going to do parentheses 6 squared minus 4 times -1 times -9, and we get 0. So I'm going to write that as 2 equations. An adding and a subtracting. And I know that that inside of that square root is 0. So I'll say -6 plus the square root of 0. On the bottom, I didn't do anything yet, so still 2 times my a, which was -1. Okay, I'm going to do the almost exact same thing, but with a minus. How are we doing so far? Making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, big thing about formulas is we have to make sure we're taking our time, not rushing it, because when we rush it, we might not get the right answer. It's not really a good way for us to check if we have a right or wrong answer.
This looks so pretty.
Okay, so now we're going to do -6 plus the square root of 0. But when we do that, we want that to be a fraction. So I'm going to do the fraction first on Desmos. -6 plus square root of 0 over 2 times -1. And we get c equals 3. So that's our first answer. Now for our next answer, I'm going to change that plus to a minus. So I go up there, I just delete the plus, and I throw in a minus. And what? We already had 3. I thought the plus was a 3.
What the hell?
What? The plus is a 3, and the minus is a 3.
That means C is equal to 3.
So how many answers does this one have? Why does this one only have 1? Okay, they're both 3. Why are both the answers 3?
Because C is 3.
Because of the 0. Good. You got it. You got it. All right. Because what is the square root of 0? What times itself is 0? 0. So either way, this is going to be 0. And if I do -6 plus 0, is that different than -6 minus 0? No, we get the same answer. So this is a one real solution. This would be where it crosses that graph only one time. We only need to have the c equals 3. You could circle both, but they're the same answer. You only get one answer. Our one answer is c is 3 because the square root is 0.
All done?
All done for today. All right, you have the rest of the time today to work on your quick check.